If you're going to apply to Oxford this year and sit the MAT, then watch this video, because Oxford just scrapped your test and replaced it with the TMUA. And here's everything that they didn't tell you. And if you're wondering who I am, by the way, then I actually scored a 7.3 in the TMUA. And if you don't know what that means, I got 5 out of 5 offers from UCAS, from Cambridge, LSE, and Imperial. Here's my full UCAS if you want to take a look. And I'm currently studying economics at Cambridge University. So, if that's out the way, what are we going to do in the next few minutes? Well, I'm going to show you the exact MAT to TMUA score translation table, which basically says what percent in the MAT translates to what new TMUA score. And on top of that, I've even created a course-specific interview probability model, which just tells you what score do you get and what chance do you have of getting an Oxford interview for every single course. So what's the breaking news about Oxford then? They had 8 tests, they're all gone. All of them. The MAT, the PAT, and all of these, they're all gone. And the crucial thing is, after 19 years of serving us, the MAT is now fully vanquished. We're never going to see it ever again. So, what are they doing instead? As I mentioned, they're all going to require the TMUA. If you're applying to pure maths and stats, computer science and philosophy, maths and computer science, and maths and philosophy. Those 6 courses are now all governed by the TMUA. Before, you would have sat the MAT, and that had 10 multiple choice questions and long form questions. Now the TMUA is just 40 multiple choice questions split up into paper 1 and paper 2, 20 each. Before, you had 6 minutes per multiple choice question, and I'll explain where that maths comes from. But now you only have 3 minutes 45 seconds per multiple choice question, and that's all you have for the entire test. And finally, before, it was roughly 22 minutes for a long question. Now there are none. There's no long questions. So the whole format has changed, and if you want to read my maths, then you can. But 3 minutes 45 seconds. This is all you get per question. And here's a quote I found. Someone barely finished both papers, and I'll speak from my personal experience. I didn't finish paper 1, and I still got a 7.3, and I'll show you that that's actually a pretty solid score. So, why are they doing this? What they want to do is to take the hundreds of tests that they had before and condense it down into just one test for anyone applying to maths, computer science, economics, etc. And this test can be used for Oxford and Cambridge, but of course, if you're applying to Oxford, then you won't be applying to Cambridge. But also, you can use the exact same test for Imperial, LSE, UCL, Warwick, Durham, etc. The idea is you take one test, you take that result everywhere. Every university now knows how good you are at maths, and it's all determined by one number the TMUA spits out. What about the translation from MAT to TMUA? Remember I said this at the beginning? Well, here's the table I made. You're never going to find this anywhere online. And basically it says roughly what MAT score takes what percentile of score, and I've converted it into the new TMUA scoring. So the TMUA, in 2024, they changed the scoring. Before, they had a different grading system. Now they have another one. And everything that you see here is for the new system, so you don't need to worry about that. And as you can see, roughly 65 before would barely be the threshold for an interview, depending on the course, which is about a 5.0 for the TMUA. And if you want to do really well, then like roughly 75 used to be like a very good MAT score, and that's roughly the 90th percentile, which roughly corresponds to 6 to 6.5. And that's where I believe if you're a strong Oxford applicant, this is where you should be aiming for the new TMUA system. So you might be wondering, okay, Shrey, what is this new grading system? Well, here is the distribution of the old marks, which were down here, and then the new marks, which is this curve up here. And if you're wondering how to convert the scores by yourself, I go to 6.7, I go up, and let's say this was like 2022, so I go up to the 2022 one, and as you can see, it's roughly around here. I just read off this line, and then I go to this new 2024 grading system, which is applied the same for 2024, 2025, 2026. They're all going to follow roughly the same curve, and then I just go down, and I can see roughly I would have got like a 5.4. So that's like kind of the tedious method that you're meant to use for this. What are the caveats? You have to pull up this chart every time. We don't have every single year on this, so if you did the 2018 paper, tough luck. You're going to have to just assume the 2022 and the 2018 grades were the same, which they're not, and it's kind of annoying. So instead, what should you do? What's the new way of doing this? Well, I actually created a TMUA score converter. It's completely free. You don't even need to sign up. It's the first link in the description. And you know what? Instead of telling you this, let me just show you. So all you do, you just go on tmua.co.uk, you hit the button at the top, it says score converter. You can see I'm not even signed in. I haven't even logged in. And all I do is I just say exactly what paper I did. 2022, let's say I did paper 1, and then the benefit of this is I can even say what mark I got. I don't even need to convert it into a grade and then convert it into the new system. So let's say I got like 12 out of 20, which sounds kind of low, but trust me, some of these questions are a bit hard. And then I just hit the button. It says I would have got a 6.9, which is this percentile, but because of the new grading system, as you know, as you can see from the graph, most scores went down. This is actually the new grade I would get. So that's just completely free. Link in the description. I'd highly recommend if you do any TMUA paper, use this to convert to the new system just so you have an idea as to what score to actually expect, because all the old scores are basically useless now. So I've also created the interview probability model for you, which basically says what TMUA score gets you what chance at an interview for all of these courses. So I haven't done it for all of them, but the ones I could get my hands on the data for, I have done a rough approximation as to what chance you'd expect to get an interview. So for example, I'm recommending everyone to try and get a 6.3. And the reason is because it gives you the most solid chance across the board with the most realistic score of actually getting an interview. Now, Oxford are very stingy with the interviews. They tend to give out less than Cambridge. And I don't know why that is. That's just their policy. And I'm basically just assuming that they're going to continue that even instead of using the MAT, using the TMUA, but they're still going to carry on interviewing the same percentage of people. So that's the assumption that I've made here. And this is basically telling you, you can take a look at your course and what score you need to get. You're aiming probably, hopefully, for an 80% chance of interview. So you can take a look at what score that means for you. The most shocking stat I saw for this was that only 19% of people applying to computer science got an interview by Oxford. So that's only 1 in 5, which is the most shocking thing, because that means that the TMUA is almost everything for you. You need to get an insanely high TMUA score to demonstrate that you're worthy of an interview, because your personal statement, everyone has a good personal statement. Let's be honest, everyone's going to be using, the best AI or whatever nowadays to improve their personal statement. Everyone will have read all the same books, or, even if you have a niche book, like we're comparing apples and oranges here. Or let's say that you have 4 A-star predicted. Fantastic. So does almost everyone else. So the TMUA is going to be that one number that actually differentiates you from the 81% that aren't going to get an interview as well. So another couple stats, 55% of math applicants at Oxford get an interview, which is better odds. But also think about it this way. If 55% of people are getting an interview, but only 15% are getting in, then realistically, the people with the good TMUAs here are more likely to be in this 15%. Like if you're Oxford and you see some guy with like a 7.0 amazing TMUA, and then you see some guy with a 5.0 or like a 5.5 and they barely got that interview, you're more likely to take in this guy because you know that they're going to get in. So my 2 cents about this is 6 to 6.5 is roughly where most decisions are going to happen. If you're going to get below a 6, you got probably a low-ish chance of getting the interview, or even if you do get the interview, you're going to be frowned upon as compared to people that score above you. A 6 to 6.5 is pretty good overall, and it's going to be kind of context dependent on the interview, etc. And above a 6.5, you're going in with a tailwind. Like, you have good odds of getting into Oxford. Not only will you get the interview, they are going to favorably look at you, even if your interview goes a little bit off. So you're basically buying yourself a bit of leeway by getting a really high TMUA score, which is why you just want to max out this number as much as possible. Computer science is probably just the hardest one. It's the tightest filter, because Cambridge computer science, on the other hand, we have 70 to 80% interview rates, but here we only have 19, so it's a huge drop. So if you're applying to Oxford computer science, then you better apply with the idea in mind that you're going to get a really high TMUA, because there's a high chance if you don't, you won't even get the interview, whereas here you will have a much higher chance of getting that interview. Another question that people might have is, because Oxford people are now taking the TMUA, will scores inflate? So I just put a pros and cons list, and then I'll explain what I think about this. But of course, Oxford applicants are pretty strong. So if they're applying and they're all doing the TMUA now, then it does kind of seem like the top 10% before is going to be crowded by Oxford people who are going to get even better. So it might push up the TMUA scores that you need. Before, people will be preparing for the MAT and the TMUA, but because the MAT is gone now, they can go all in on TMUA prep, which means that they're more prepared for that specific exam, which means that overall grades in general might go higher. So what are the arguments against? Well, Pearson or UAT UK are the people that are doing the new testing, and they have 5,000 different testing centers, which means that they are professionals at this. So from what I understand, they'll basically do some stats and ensure that it's not any harder to get the scores. And as you saw from the graph before, they're pretty good at making sure the curves for each year are quite similar to each other. And on top of that, the way I think about it, people saying the TMUA are already applying to Cambridge, Imperial, LSE. They're not dumb, right? And adding Oxford applicants into the mix is just kind of, similar quality of applicant to a Cambridge applicant. So you're basically just going to have more people sitting the exam, which should just give you a more consistent scoring like through every single year. So overall, my 2 cents are probably the scores won't inflate and just the competition will intensify. What does that mean? It just means people are going to be more prepared for the TMUA. People are going to be sitting down. They're just going to know what's coming up. So what exactly are they going to be preparing for? Well, they're going to be preparing for paper 2 because that's the one where most people struggle. Let me show you paper 1. Paper 1 is the stuff that you know. It's just year 12 AS stuff. And it's just stuff like quadratics, calculus, sequences, stuff like that. But paper 2 is the stuff that you've never seen before. It's stuff like the logic of arguments. So the questions will have statements like, if this, then that. Or what is the contrapositive of this statement? You probably don't even know what that word means. Then they will have a lot of questions on necessary and sufficient conditions for things, which have very specific maths definitions. They'll have stuff like for all x or there exists x, and that's not that easy, and you might not have seen that much at AS level. And we'll also have things like identifying proof types and errors, so they might have a question where a student has done some maths, something's gone wrong, and you need to identify the error in the proof. Now, some of these questions do exist at AS level, they're like 1 mark. The questions here are much harder. It's much harder to spot exactly what's gone wrong. And this is exactly why I created tmua-co-uk for students who are applying to Oxford just like you. So what have we got on here? We've got papers written by students who got an 8.0 in the TMUA and above. And once you get a question wrong, then we'll even tell you what exactly you did wrong compared to everyone else. We've got interactive graphs that show you exactly the visual explanation of what's going on with all of the correct maths, just so you know exactly how to solve it next time. So if you're interested, there's a free paper 1 mock down below and a free paper 2 mock down below for a limited time. And all you need to do is just sign up. It's just there for free. And we'll tell you everything you need to work on, all the topics that you need to get better at. And on an aside, the statistics page is also kind of nice. It just tells you everything you need to improve on and all the topics that you're good at and how fast you are at them. So you need to mark your calendar right now because these are all the dates of everything that's going to be going on right now this year for you. And here are the 5 key takeaways for this video. The MAT is gone, the TMUA is now the new king, and 6.3 plus is what I would recommend. 7.0 pretty much will get you a really solid chance, even if you mess up the interview, of getting into Oxford. Oxford Computer Science is the one where they narrow it down extremely hard beforehand, so you need to get an extremely high TMUA score for it. Paper 2 Logic is the one which you should focus on the most, and one test now covers everything, so you don't need to worry about all the different test styles and everything. If this video was useful, then subscribe for more TMUA stuff and watch this video next.